It's time for the double stop with Brian Sword.
Welcome to the Double Stop. I'm Brian Sword. This week on the show, we've got Jeff LaBar from Cinderella. Now, Jeff's got a new solo EP out called One for the Road, where he steps behind the mic and actually handles lead vocal duties as well as guitar. It's an interesting record. A few songs have the early Cinderella vibe, some are really heavy, and there are a few really nice acoustic tunes too. As always, we go through his entire career, and Jeff has some great stories. For those on internet radio, you're listening to the 60-minute version. Podcast listeners will get the full 75-minute chat. So let's get right to it. Here is the life and times of Jeff LaBar.
Cause he don't like the answers when he's sober and it's clear. He gave his all with his back against the wall. The bartender stands with his hands upon his hips.
I'm from Darby, Pennsylvania. I was born in Darby, Pennsylvania. Grew up in Upper Darby School District. That's just outside of Philadelphia. Musical background in my family started with my older brother Jack. You know, he was into rock and classical rock of the 60s and 70s. I just grew up in his footsteps, and he also turned my parents onto that type of music. So, like my dad, I was going to like Yes and Genesis and Pink Floyd concerts with my parents.
Oh, nice.
Stuff like that. I think my first concert was Yes with my mom and dad, and I would think I was like 9 or 10 years old.
And did they play any instruments as well?
No, my parents didn't. My dad, when he was young, he sang in the choir, but that was about it. But no, just music fans, and to this day, he's still a big music fan. He's big on his Sirius XM in the car now, and listens to a lot. He actually listens to a lot of classical music now.
And when did you start picking up a guitar, and was that your first instrument?
No, I started with drums. My older brother Jack, he's about 5 years older than me. So he's I don't know, I guess when he was early teenager, he started playing guitar. And I was like, oh, well, I want to play drums. So I took drum lessons in I think it was fourth grade. And it was very boring because in fourth grade, they give you a practice pad.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was like, I want the drum set, and I got a cheapy little drum set and I bashed it to pieces. And I was like, yeah, not so much. Not so much for me. So my brother was playing guitar. So I guess, he's probably 14 or 15, which makes me 9 or 10, 8, 9, 10. When he would work after school, and I'd pull out one of his guitars and, jammed Alice Cooper and Zeppelin records, in front of a mirror. And he caught me a couple times, wasn't real happy about it. But one time, I guess he was in a good mood. He's like, you want to learn how to play that, or you just want to keep dancing in front of a mirror? I was like, well, I never really thought about it. He showed me 3 chords and put a songbook out in front of me. He's like, these are the diagrams of the chords. That's where you put your fingers on your left hand. It's strum with your right hand. If you know how the song goes in your head, you can figure it out. I was like, oh, okay. So that was my one and only lesson.
Oh, really? So from there, you're fully self-taught.
That was my crash course right there. And I started listening to records and pulling out the songbooks and strumming along. And then, it got, the playing by ear came with Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. I was like, ooh, those aren't chords. Those are riffs. So I had to figure them out by ear, because the songbooks that I was learning to were all on acoustic guitar. It was a lot of it was a lot like folk music even. It was not folk rock, Eagles, Cat Stevens, Jim Croce, Harry Chapin, even Carpenters and stuff like that, That's how I learned how to play acoustic and learned how to play chords. And it was Jimmy Page and Tony Iommi who taught me how to, play and write riffs.
when did you get your first electric then?
Well, it was the one that my brother owned. My brother's first guitar. When he got a new guitar, he gave me his old one. So maybe 10 or 12, something like that. Each time he got a new and nicer and better guitar, he gave me his old one. So it was my first two guitars were from him. He also, for my 15th birthday, bought me an Ibanez acoustic 12-string. It was awesome because the first time I ever heard Boston, More Than a Feeling, I was like, Jack, what is that guitar? That's guitar that sounds all chimey like that. He goes, that's a 12-string. I was like, what's that? He goes, you don't have to worry about that yet. Yeah, just keep practicing. And, swear to God, man, true to, the way my brother has always been to me, my 15th birthday, he bought me one. I was like, it was like the coolest birthday present ever.
I'm not going to lie, your brother sounds pretty badass.
It's funny, if you see him now, you wouldn't call him badass. But he's a great brother. He's always been a great brother. He was always nurturing to my music career, and I've tried to repay him over the years and have given him a few guitars too.
No, when did you get in your first band?
Probably, I guess, well, at the end of grade school, like maybe my last 2 years, 5th and 6th grade, me and my buddy Andrew, he was taking guitar lessons. So I would just go over his house and we, show each other what we know or what we learned and stuff. And it was 7th grade when we both went to a new school. We both went to junior high school. That's when junior high school started, with a whole batch of other kids that you didn't know, did like the same stuff that you liked, found all kinds of kids that played instruments. Me and Andrew was the only other person I knew to play guitar. So we went to a new school and met all these other people, and Andrew switched to bass. And so he and I teamed up with another guitar player and a drummer. We were Zeppelin heads, and those two were Jimi Hendrix heads. So we didn't really form a band. We just went over the guitar player's basement and jammed together. We did only Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, because he played all the Jimi Hendrix riffs and leads. I played all the Zeppelin riffs and leads. So, and we never even had a singer, but it was around then that, I started getting with it, and junior high school. I was probably 8th grade. I think I formed my first band with a singer maybe in 9th grade. 10th grade was high school started, and I actually had a band with a singer, and we did songs, like whole songs. And that's when I started entering the Battle of the Bands. My high school, Upper Darby High School, had Battle of the Bands every year, and it was awesome because this was like the late 70s, early 80s, and so like that kind of music was so cool, and high school was based. Do you ever see the movie Dazed and Confused?
Oh yeah.
It was a lot like that. My high school was a lot like that. You're into sports, you're into music, you're into smoking pot. It was like it was just like that movie, except for that movie was more sports oriented. But the music in that movie was awesome, and like the athletes would come out to the Battle of the Bands and stuff. It was a big deal there. So my first year, I came in 5th out of 7 bands.
Well, at least you weren't the worst.
Oh, I know, right? But it was my first time. I was in 10th grade, so I was a sophomore. New to that school. But the next 2 years, junior and senior year, my band won it both years.
And was that part of the time where you would play probably a keg party and there'd be 1,000 people show up? Was that part of that too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's all we played. I didn't know about clubs yet. I'm in high school, but yeah, that's what we played. We played keg parties. We played like beef and beers, somebody rent out of the fire hall or fire station, we just like set up on the floor, Yeah, that's what I played in high school.
Now, when you finished like the kind of high school period in your life, what did you do then? Like at that point, did you try to pursue music, or did you go for a fallback plan? What did you want to do at that point?
Oh, I didn't know. After high school, I mean, I always had a job. Sometimes I had more than one job. At one point, at the point I got signed with Cinderella, I was detailing cars during the day and I was delivering Chinese food at night. So I always had a job. I just never had a career. And I just played music because I enjoyed doing it. I never really expected to, you know, I never really expected to make a living, but I just kept moving on. After high school, it was like, time to. I just wanted to further myself, so I started playing with older people, people that were already playing clubs, people that recorded music, original music in recording studios. So yeah, I guess my early 20s. I think I was 19 or 20 the first time I ever went to a recording studio and recorded a few songs that I wrote too with some older guys that were already in an established band. And
Do those
I
recordings still
became the main
exist?
songwriter. Wouldn't you like to know? I have a few of them. My wife Debbie, she's like, "Oh, is that band that sounded like Styx?" It was like a cross between Journey and Styx. We had like this fantastic keyboard player, who was straight out of the '60s, '70s, But yeah, she laughs at some of that stuff, and it was my first foray into singing too. So, I mean, even though I always grew up singing, on my bed with an acoustic and the songbooks, but yeah, I have some recordings.
Yeah, well, if you want to send us a short sample, I would totally include it.
My God, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. I don't know if I'm ready for that to go public yet.
I hear you. And in terms of your first time singing, I would assume again, was that fully self-taught, or did you get a little bit of singing training?
No, I didn't get any formal training until after Cinderella. Until after I was in Cinderella, and I sang. I sang a lot of backgrounds on the first record, and when it became apparent that when our harmonies were getting like 4 and 5 part harmonies and stuff, Tom started sharing his vocal coach with us. Oh. So he sent his vocal coach, like a really famous vocal coach, Roger Love. He actually sent him to my house. I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. At the time, I didn't know he was that famous, but he's like real famous now. But yeah, but then started working with another vocal coach here in Tennessee. I live in Nashville now, but no, I didn't have any formal training back then, and it became apparent that what I was recording in the studio was a lot harder to do live, especially with so loud and monitors not quite being right, and I had a tendency to sing flat. And every now and I still do a little bit, unless I can really hear myself so clear. But so yes, I have worked with a vocal coach, but I didn't back then.
And those initial recordings, were they essentially demos to try to get a record contract, or what was the plan for those?
What recordings?
Those original recordings that you said that you did where you were on vocals, those very early recordings you did.
Oh, I don't know. There was just it was just learning. It was, it was just like playing and learning how to do it, writing, learning how to do that. It's just, it was just my progression, I guess. That was the first foray into the studio, first at writing and recording with seasoned professionals. So yeah, just chalk that up to experience. You're getting the experience. My real schooling became when I got into Cinderella.
And how did that happen? How did you get that gig?
Well, when I first started playing clubs, I did it with a band called Precious Metal. Tony Harnell used to be in Precious Metal back in the day. TNT singer. So they actually had a legacy of a lot of people who, you know, went on to do other things. And they'd been together for years. And I was just the next guitar player in a long line. And I was like, wow, yeah, I definitely want to play in your band because they play the club circuit. I think I might have been 20, maybe just 21, maybe 22, something like that. So I was like, wow, yeah, I want to play clubs. I never even thought of it, you know. But yeah, so we started getting real cool, and well, they were already cool, but I was like new kid on the block, so I started getting real popular, a lot with, especially with the ladies. I was like, wow, this is what I was looking for, you know, you know. So we used to open for some of the bigger bands, like Cinderella was probably the biggest band around. A band called Tease, a band called Warrior. There was a bunch of bands back then that we used to get to open for. So Cinderella was the house band at the Galaxy in South Jersey. Every Saturday night they played at midnight, and they rehearsed upstairs, and the recording studio was upstairs. So it was like one-stop shopping, you know. But I'd get to open for them every now and then, and I'd run upstairs, and when I'd get done, I'd run upstairs, get changed, and run back downstairs and stand right in front of them and be like, wow, I honestly thought, even out loud, that I was like, this is the band I need to be in, you know. And I told people, I was like, that they need to have me in that band.
They need me.
Yes. And I don't think I was in that band Precious Metal for more than a year before Tom came to me and asked me to audition. And it was like, yeah, I was like, I'm getting this. I auditioned against some really good guitar players too. Reggie Wu, you know Reggie Wu from Heaven's Edge?
Right, yeah.
You know, Snake Sabo.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Skid Row. You know, some really good people. You know what's funny? Dean Davidson from
Brittany Fox?
Fox, yeah. He was a drummer back then. See, they were auditioning guitar players and drummers. Cinderella got a record deal, but only Tom and Eric got the deal. So Dean Davidson auditioned as a drummer. And so me and this guy, Jim Dernick, got the gig. He didn't work out in the studio when we went to record night songs. And we got a studio musician named Jody Cortez, and then got Fred and took a picture and put him on the cover. So already at this point, I'm in the band for what, a year? Already we're on our fourth drummer, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Spinal Tap.
Oh my God. So, so what was awesome about it is the two guys that didn't get the deal, they went on to form Brittany Fox.
Oh, wow.
They got Dean Davidson to get a Tom Keifer wig and sing like Tom Keifer, and started, you know, what we used to jokingly call Cinderella Light. or Diet Cinderella.
Nice.
It's terrible of me to say. It's funny, but you know, those guys are actually friends. You know, I'm still friends with Johnny D. And yeah. So they actually went on and parlayed their, you know, misfortune, parlayed it into fortune.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Because they did really well.
So it was like everybody wins. You know.
Now, when that album came out, at least I'm in Canada, so at least it seemed to me it came out and boom, it was big. Was that your perception?
Yes. Yes, it was my perception. Now, I like I said, when I joined the band, they already had a record deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I stepped into it. Like I said, I just kept moving on and taking the better opportunity every step of the way, and that was it. So I was like, okay, how does this work? Well, how it works is you keep playing the same clubs, you keep writing more songs, and you keep demoing. I was like, oh, okay. So this was 85. And So I think I did that, played with them in clubs and demoed new songs with them for probably a year. And maybe about halfway into that, we were told that we could quit our day jobs and devote ourselves full time to writing and recording. I was like, wow. Well, so we had a personal manager who was a backer. He was a backer, and he was signed as a fifth member of the band. So he was getting, his cut was going to be, the same as each one of us. And he had sunk a lot of money into Cinderella, paid for all the demos. He had gotten an inheritance, and decided to use it on Cinderella. So he's the one that said, "Okay, you guys can all quit your jobs. I'm going to start paying you what you make now at your day job." We didn't get no big bucks. He just paid us whatever you make. In 1985, I think I was making $150 a week. So it was cool. I didn't have to detail cars no more, and around noon, we'd all get together and go to the studio and do what we love to do. And that was the beginning of that.
In terms of the songs on the first record, were they mostly written when you joined, or did that happen after you joined?
They were mostly, when I joined Cinderella, they had like a catalog of probably 40 or 50 songs. And then after I joined, I think we only demoed like 5 or 6 more songs, in that time. And I think that was it. But we just got tighter and tighter, and until the label approved everything, and then sent us. We didn't get no, like, how people are like, oh, they signed for $1 million. It's like, we signed for a budget. I think we had a budget of $165,000 to record night songs. Okay, we didn't like all go out and buy cars.
No.
We you know what I mean?
You're trying to record the record for 165 grand, and if there's anything left, you guys get paid? Is that how it worked?
Anything left? We had to go to the label. We had to go to the label twice for more money. So each time they had to come up to the studio in Bearsville, New York. They had to send representatives up, and the A&R guy who signed us, and to okay the money. Like, let's hear what you've done so far. Is it going to be worth it for us to put in more money? And each time they gave us more money. I think the record ended up costing, I think the original budget was $150,000. It ended up costing $265,000.
Wow. Yeah, it's 1985 probably, right? So
85 to 86.
And how did you get Andy Johns involved?
That's like label, like when we were brand new, label suggests people. We're like, who would you like to work with? It's like, well, I like this record. I like that record. I've heard records that this, you all like put your thinking caps on. Well, who would you like to work with? I was like, I don't know. And then they have suggestions of people that would like to do our record too, and people that they have worked with before. So that's how Andy Johnson's name came up. And we're like, you mean the guy that engineered Physical Graffiti? I'm like, yes, please.
He has a Zeppelin head.
I was like, oh my God, Physical Graffiti is my #1 all-time favorite record. And like, I got all the stories from him, how he got the drum sound and all that. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Now, in terms of your instant success, how much do you think video had to play with that?
Oh my God. With the birth of MTV, it was like all about image now, especially with that style of music, especially with, hard rock of the 80s. We didn't call it hair metal back then. It was hard rock. Metal was Anthrax and Metallica. Hard rock was, Cinderella and Poison. But yeah, the label was really behind us every step of the way, and we're really lucky in that way. They, when we started, they wanted to make a video for Shake Me. I think at first, each time we did something good, we got a little more. you know, I think the first video was totally recoupable, which means they get their money back after paying for it.
Yeah.
I think the second video was like half recoupable, like they paid half, we paid half, and I think by the third one they were paying for them. You know, so they're basically 3.5-minute commercials for your album.
Oh, totally.
It was like so. Yeah, so that's the way we looked at it. It was like, yeah, let's make a kick-ass commercial. you know, so absolutely had. I mean, MTV had a big hand in all the hard rock bands of the '80s, and not just hard rock bands, but all the music of the '80s.
Now, for the tour for that record, what kind of experience was that for you to be out of clubs and into some big rooms?
Well, the first tour we did was opening for Loudness, so it was still it was like small. It was like auditoriums. I'm gonna say maybe 2,000 to 3,000 people, because we were opening for that Japanese band Loudness, which at the time was one of my favorite bands. And guess who the other opening band was?
Britney Fox.
Poison. Britney Fox. No, Britney Fox hadn't come out yet, but it took Britney Fox a couple more years to come out. But now it's Poison. Us and Poison were opening for Loudness. So the first show we did was in Santa Monica, and we opened, and Poison went on second. But every place after that, Poison, because it was California, every place we played in California, Poison was the band in the middle. And after that, Poison opened for us, which was never going to happen again. We toured together for like 4 or 5 different times, you know. But yeah, so we only ended up doing 2 weeks because there was some big tours going out that year that needed opening bands. You know, back then concerts were big business, and sold records or CDs. But David Lee Roth was getting ready to go out on tour, promoting his first solo CD after leaving Van Halen. And both us and Poison were up for the opening slot, and we got it. So 2 weeks we're playing these like crappy school auditoriums. They weren't school auditoriums, but they looked like it. But 2 weeks, and then I'll never forget the day I walked into my first arena. You know, I walked out on the floor, and there was like early morning, and like there was no seats on the floor. It was a friggin' arena. I think it was in Hampton, Virginia. And I'm just standing in the middle of the floor, like looking while they're setting up Dave's gargantuan stage. he had the biggest staging setup I ever seen in my life. I'm just standing there like, oh my God, I'm going to play here. And I turn around, and here comes Dave with 2 bodyguards walking towards me. I'm like, oh my God, there he is. No, I'm still, I'm all starstruck. And he walks right up to me and goes, welcome to the tour. Ought to be a good crowd for you tonight. If there's anything you ever need, all you have to do is ask. I was like, wow, I don't think I said a word. But about a week later, we got about a week's shows under our belts. He's got this gigundo lighting rig, just ridiculous amounts of lights. And we're the opening band, so we have just the front of the stage and just like the front few trusses of lights, And I walked up to him. I got the balls to walk up to him and said, hey, Dave, remember when we met? I had to reintroduce myself first. I was like, I'm the guitar player of the band that's opening for you. He's like, remember you introduced yourself? And it's like, anything you guys need, all you got to do is ask. I was like, how about a few more lights? He goes, how about selling a few more records? I was like, oh. I was like, ooh, that cut.
Yeah, that's a good burn.
And the next night we had 2 gigantic pars more of lights.
Oh, there you go. I guess he respected your balls to go ask him for it.
Apparently. He liked us, man. I mean, he's still Dave, but he liked us a lot, man. Hanging out and stuff. He loved Tom. Sometimes he would hold Tom captive.
And that was a big tour. Like that tour was a huge success. You know, he was.
Well, yeah, I got to play my hometown in Philadelphia, the place where I went to see concerts. We sold out 2 shows.
Oh man, that must have been a trip for you.
I bought 50 tickets for each show. And like guys that I grew up with are like in front, you know, I got my whole family up in the press box and like everywhere I look, there's people I know. It was freaking awesome. 50 tickets for each show. But then we moved on, and then like that was for 5 months. And then we got the Bon Jovi Slippery When Wet tour. It was like as if it couldn't get any better. The same guy, Derek Shulman, who signed Bon Jovi, signed us as well. So we're on the same label, signed by the same guy, and have, you know, top 10 records out at the same time. You know, at one point, Bon Jovi hit #1, and we were at #3 on Billboard. So we went back to Philly and sold out 4 shows. We did 5 shows. I think it was 4 shows in St. Louis. These are arena-sized shows too. You know, so we did 5 shows in Detroit in 2 different arenas. Joe Louis and Cobo that are across the street from each other. We set up one stage in one arena and one in the other. That just walked across the street the next night.
Damn. Yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of wrap your head around that huge of a tour. Like that's a massive tour.
Yeah, you know, times have changed so much. I mean, you know, for an artist, a singer, a band, whatever, to sell 1 million is like unbelievable with, you know, digital downloads. And people aren't really buying hard copies. There's not records. There's CDs are almost obsolete now. And short attention spans also. You know, people buy a song at a time. You know, I just want the single. I just want the hit. So even for like the biggest acts, you know, the biggest singers, you know, even like Taylor Swift, you know, you go to the, you know, the real superstars like Beyonce and, you know, a lot of that hip hop and stuff. I mean, Lady Gaga, you know, I think her last record sold 1 million, maybe 2. You know, I mean, we sold 3 first album, you know, and at that time, Bon Jovi had sold like 7. You know, I think they've since like top 15 or 20.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. And in concerts too, you know, you can see all the artists you want to, all your favorite artists online or on TV or, you know, on your friggin' phone. You know, as like concerts aren't big business either.
No, the whole industry's changing, that's for sure. There was clearly a very big musical shift between Cinderella's first record and the second record. How early in the game did you know you guys were going to shift your sound like that? And how the heck did you ever get the record company to agree to it with only 1 record out?
Well, I don't think it was a conscious decision. I don't think any of us said, look, we're going to go out and make a record that's way different. What happened was the first record was songs written a long time ago. You know, the first record, pretty much between the label, us, and Andy Johns, we picked out the songs that that should be on the first record. You know, and some of them were like, oh man, really? You know, I mean, like, you know, some of those songs Tom could have written in high school, you know? So I think it was all those songs were already old to us, you know, and we had already moved on to writing not so adolescent songs.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So we didn't consciously go, oh, we're going to be bluesier now. No, we just had better songs that weren't so juvenile, you know, for the lack of a better word, you know, grown up. I mean, grew up. We wanted to explore more. We wanted to add acoustics. Like, oh, we didn't play any acoustic guitars on the first record, you know? Oh, you know, let's add some strings, you know, put some horns on this, blah, blah, blah. It was just like, you know, let's get a percussionist, you know? Yeah. It was just a matter of growing up and getting better, you know? I don't think the label ever said anything about the direction, you know, because it was still hard rock.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know? So I don't think I don't remember at the time. I remember at the time while we were recording Long Cold Winter. See, I wasn't signed to the label yet. You know, I was only signed to Cinderella, where I told you that only Tom and Eric got signed.
Yeah.
Well, me and Fred were not signed to the label. We were signed as members of Cinderella.
Oh, wow.
Cinderella. So I remember while we were recording Long Cold Winter, our manager brought in, you know, a 2-foot high stack of contracts for me to sign. I'm like, why? They're like, well, the label wants you to sign with them. I was like, is that a good thing? Because, it means that they want you. They want to lock you in. You know, it's like you're not just signed with the band. Now you're signed to the label. I was like, oh, does that come with any extra responsibility? No, but I definitely took it as a compliment. I was like, okay, the label believes in me. Because when I auditioned for Cinderella, you know, I had to audition for the label too. Once they found me and the drummer, Derek Schulman had to come out. The A&R guy who signed us had to come out and approve of me. And I'm backtracking now, but, you know, one of the things Derek said before he ever met me, he said, you know what you need? You guys need a flashier guitar player. You know, like a Jake E. Lee type. And I think Jake and I are, you know, are brothers from another mother.
Yeah, you, especially back then, you looked a lot alike.
So he was very happy.
Yeah, it's interesting because even like the cover for the record could not have been any more different than the earlier cover off of Night Songs.
Well, the cover is it's just white.
Yeah, exactly. It's just clean band logo. You know, that's it.
Yeah, we wanted something that would stand out on a shelf, you know, CD shelf, on an album shelf that was, and something when you signed it, you could actually see the signature.
That's actually pretty clever. I like that.
Right.
So I think it was Gypsy Road was the first single on that one, and again, I remember when that came out, and to me it was like, oh wow, that's very different. And super cool, and it took off pretty well. Was that another big hit right away for that record, or did it take fans a little bit to get used to the new sound?
No, that was the Shake Me. That was the Shake Me on this record. You know, both those records did pretty much the same. We sold like 3 million of the first one, and it sold like another 3 million of the second one. But yeah, it was. You know, it's almost formulaic. You know, you listen to everything you recorded, and you go, okay, well, we have to release the anthem-y, poppy rock song, you know, one that people can sing along with, which was obviously "Shake Me" on the first one, and it was obviously "Gypsy Road" on the second one. "Gypsy Road" we probably could have used a few songs, but I mean, "Long Cold Winter" we probably could have used a few songs, but that was. Usually they're obvious to us all. And then you have to release the ballad. You know? Then you release the rock ballad. And then the third one, you always like, okay, what's the next best upbeat rock tune on the record? You know?
Yeah, you don't want to be just known as a ballad band. You can't release 2 in a row.
Oh, no, right? Although we did. Not two in a row. But we released Coming Home after, I think it was the fourth. So I don't know if it's really a ballad.
Yeah, it's kind of mid-tempo, I'd say. Ballad-esque.
Yeah, it's a mid-tempo ballad.
And in terms of the tour for that, were you starting to headline at that point, or were you still opening up for other acts?
We did 2 months with AC/DC. I can't remember which order it was, but we did 2 months with Judas Priest and 2 months with AC/DC. Which was a big change for us because there were no girls.
Yeah, right?
You know, we just got done with David Lee Roth and Bon Jovi, where it was like, you know, 80% chicks, you know. And then we went Judas Priest. I couldn't find a chick. It's so funny. But then after 4 months, we did 2 each with those guys, which was also a learning experience. You always learn from opening from like professionals, especially Priest and AC/DC. So then we got to put together our own show. We got to put together our own headlining tour. And we actually got to pick the bands who opened for us too. At the time, Winger and Bullet Boys were like, coming out. Bullet Boys were like, oh, absolutely, we need Bullet Boys, and I think by picking those 2 bands, because they toured with us for like 5 months, both of them, and both their records went gold and platinum while they were on our tour. Gave us gold and platinum records, presented them to us on stage and stuff. Really cool. But putting together our own headlining tour was pretty simple. The staging, all we wanted to do is match the album cover. We made everything white. All the Marshall stacks and bass cabinets and drums, everything was white. And then we even got a snow machine, for a long cold winter.
Yeah.
The coolest thing we came up with is the piano. The piano was up in the rafters, and Tom would come down on a full-size grand piano, white, of course, out of the lighting trusses, would slowly be, dropped down on the stage while he did the intro at the beginning of Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone. And the snow machine was for Long Cold Winter.
Your shows starting then and then continuing till now have always been very musically complex amongst the instrument changes. There's all kinds of stuff coming and going, and and just how complicated did that get?
Well, it was more complicated for my guitar tech than it was for me.
I guess so.
Depending on who my guitar tech was at the time. Because there was a lot of changes, and I would have to be, I'd have to have a double neck on with an acoustic on a stand in front of me, and Tom's got a piano and a dobro and electric guitar double neck on. Like, yeah, it got really confusing and complicated because for the techs, the guys who were behind the scenes, they have to be on every little thing, and one screw up, like one thing, oh shit, they get like a deer in headlights. Like, oh, you mess one thing up and then it just snowballs. But especially if you break a string, then it throws a whole nother monkey wrench into the whole program. You got like 4 guitars out there. My acoustic has to be brought out in 2 different spots depending on the song. Sometimes it has to be brought out to the mic, and then it has to be taken away immediately after I'm done playing because I switch to my electric and I have to sing immediately. Or I have a double neck on, and you know what I mean. You get the gist.
Well, I saw you guys on the first year of the Monsters of Rock tour. Not the tour, I mean the cruise. And there was a problem with the keyboard, and it did not end well for that keyboard.
Yeah, I remember that. Just think, man. I mean, he used to do that with a grand piano. I mean, what you saw on the Monsters of Rock cruise, that was actually simplified. We started bringing out less guitars and trying to simplify it a little bit. So I mean, back in the day, man. I mean, at one point I had like 14 guitars out with me, and 2 of them were double necks.
Let's move on to Heartbreak Station. Another one, I think the sound was further honed. What was your experience recording that record?
I think we decided we're going to take our winnings and parlay them into spending a lot of money on being self-indulgent.
Okay.
We wanted to expand a lot more. We had made a lot of money, like way more money than we ever thought that we'd ever see in our lives. And so I guess it was Tom's idea. He wanted to explore different studios. He wanted to take it on the road, not just sit in a studio for 6 months. He wanted to, we picked all the songs, and then decided we wanted to take these 4 and record in Louisiana. These 4 we'll do these 3 we'll do in. I can't remember all the places. Well, we picked 4 different studios that we wanted to work in, and instead of normally when you record a record, you throw all the drum tracks down, bass, you layer everything, but you do all the basic tracks first. Well, we just took 4 songs to one studio and said, we're gonna do these 4, lay down all the drum, and finish the 4 songs, and then move to another studio and do 3 more and finish them, and then move on. Well, it ended up costing like $1 million.
Oh my goodness.
I know. We had a blast doing it,
I bet you.
Friggin' orchestras, horn sections, just a lot of acoustics. It was gonna be our Zeppelin 3. And just like Zeppelin 3, it didn't quite sell as much as Zeppelin 2.
I talked to Bob St. John, who produced all the Extreme records, and he was talking about Waiting for the Punchline. And what they did on that record is they recorded a song, left the studio, mixed the song, went back to record song 2 from scratch, recorded the song, left the studio to go mix. Yeah, I blew my mind when he explained that process. So that record, which was, after grunge, cost more than 3 sides to every story, which was like a Queen record because of that process of recording. So you want to talk extravagance,
Right.
You guys weren't alone.
When it's all said and done, we're artists, and we're looking for new art. New things to paint, new things to record, new ways to write. It's all. I think my wife laughs at me when I call myself an artist. I was like, wait, everybody else does it.
Yeah.
You see actors, you see interviews with actors and singers, like, well, my craft, I'm the artist, and like she makes me feel stupid when I say that.
You know what? If you've got half a dozen records under your belt, you go ahead and call yourself an artist. I have a problem when I see like an 18-year-old kid on American Idol call themselves an artist, and I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Right. I think that was part of my argument. Watching American Idol, it's like, if he can call himself an artist, I can.
That record didn't quite do as well as the other ones. And how was the tour? Did you start seeing notice a difference on the tour for that, or was it still a big tour?
Oh my God. Nah, we spent just as much money on the staging, or more. We spent more money on that staging than we did on the record.
Holy crap.
We at the time that we designed the stage. Now, when you do an arena tour, they have their own stage. Like you walk into an arena, it's just an empty stage, and you put all your stuff on top of it. We took our own stage. So like every arena we came into, they had to pull their stage out. We brought our own friggin' stage. It had hydraulic lifts in it. It had man lifts. It has a scissor lift. Oh my God. It had a whole underworld. Like you could go under the stage, and like some of my guitars would come up instead of a tech running out and bringing a guitar, like my acoustic on a stand, it would just come out of the stage and be there. And then it would just drop back down.
Amazing.
We would enter the stage from underneath. They'd throw us up through the stage to be on the stage. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Oh, and the pyro was friggin' ridiculous. We started that tour with 13 trucks.
Holy shit.
Now, 13 trucks. At the time, Motley Crue was out with 11. And that was like the biggest tour ever seen at that time.
Wow.
You know, we went out with 13. Now that's to begin. That's to begin a tour. You had the crew and everybody doesn't have it packed yet. You know, so immediately you break it down a couple trucks. So immediately once they set up and tear down and get the pack right, you know, it's like Tetris. You know?
Yeah, totally.
So
yeah.
we immediately went down to like 11, and then eventually got it down to 9, and then you know, tour wasn't doing so good, so we had to lose the stage. We had to lose the actual stage that took up 3 trucks. You know, not the stuff that goes on top of it. We had to lose the actual framework of the stage.
Sure. Yeah.
And all the lifts and the underworld and shit. So that took up 3. So we eventually got it down to 6 trucks and 4 buses. You know, because it started out 13 trucks and 6 buses.
That's still a big tour, though. With six trucks.
I know. Yeah, 6 trucks. Yeah, it was 6 trucks and 4 buses. Because we had an oversized band too. Now we probably had 20 or 30 on the crew, and we had 2 crew buses and then 2 band buses because we had an oversized band. We had a keyboard player, we had a sax player who also played keyboards, and we had 2 background singers.
Wow.
So, and then we had like 2 security guys, a tour manager, an accountant. You know, those are the like front office guys rode the band, 2 band.
So you have an accountant who's losing his mind?
Well, because we had the accountant, we made the adjustments on the way. Go.
So you guys didn't lose your shirt on that tour then?
No. Well, we lost a little bit of clothing. But I mean, we still get paid. You know, I mean, you know, the way we run our business is we don't take big chunks of change. You know, when we do a tour, we put ourselves on salary. You know, we get a salary every week or every 2 weeks or whatever, you know, and it's budgeted to be reasonable. No, we're not like trying to be greedy. We're just trying to pay our bills at home and keep our families secure. And like, you know, when merch money comes in later, you know, like all that, we split up stuff at the end of the tour.
Oh, okay.
But we make sure we have the money first.
So it's like responsible decadence.
Right? That's a good way to put it.
Now, the end of that tour, was that when Tom started having problems with his vocals, or was he still fine at that point?
You know what? Your timeline might be better than mine. Yeah, maybe it was that tour he started having problems. Yeah, probably. It's like, because the first 2 tours, I don't think we ever canceled a show. You know I've never missed a show. And but yeah, it might have been that tour he started having problems. But you know, it's funny, his problems were never typical. They were never typical singer problems. He's like, oh yeah, the way he sings, he's got nodes. I was like, no. Like, you know, at one time he developed a cyst on one of his vocal cords. Another time he got paralysis. It's just, you know, they were never like the typical singer stuff. You know?
Yeah, I think because of his raspy style, you would assume that. But if he was having vocal training throughout, he knew how to sing.
Right. So that's what he would tell you. I was like, you know, because I'd say for the longest time, I was like, well, dude, look, you know, listen to the way you sing. And he would insist that's not it. He said, what you hear is not wear and tear. It's not me like screaming. He said, I'm still singing properly. He had medical issues, straight up medical issues that had nothing to do with the way he sang.
And that's scarier.
Right?
You know, like if it's like a node because you got bad technique, well, you'll get a coach and you sing a little different and, you know, you're fine. Like Richie Kotzen had that problem. You know, he started singing, he had a bunch of nodes, got proper training, changed the way he sang, and then he never had a problem again, you know, so.
Yeah, well, same thing for Tom.
So how big of a deal was it when you were doing Still Climbing? And how, you know, from your perspective, you know, you can't speak for Tom, but how frightening was it for you to see your singer, you know, having these struggles?
I think at that point it didn't seem that serious. Like I think he had his most serious problems after we weren't making records anymore, and we were trying to do some tours. I mean, some of the tours that we did with Poison, are way after we ever made a record. And some of those tours, he did a whole tour with like fucking laryngitis. He did a whole tour where he was like, he was choking and coughing into a mic, and he didn't want to cancel I think we had canceled a tour before, and he didn't want to do it to us. He basically said, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to sound like shit. Just know that.
Right.
I sound terrible. I'm having trouble. He said, but I don't want to cancel and send everybody home. I was like, it's not just the band, but it's everybody in the crew too. Everybody's out of a job if he can't sing. So he did a whole tour like in pain. So, but that was, back then, he may have had his first problems, but they weren't serious. The serious problems were later on after that, when we were just doing like in the 2000s, when we were doing, Poison tours.
And now for Still Climbing, which I think is a cool record, but man, it was like crickets when that came out. Like the record label did nothing for you.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons for that. First of all, grunge. Okay, music was changing. MTV turned from glitter and glam to gas station attendants with flannel shirts. But I understood it because a lot of music and style, but mostly style, goes full circle. They go in cycles. Glam got so glammy, as glittery, as flashy as it could possibly go. And like, where are you going to go from there? Well, you strip it down. So everybody from Seattle said, oh, those guys are gay. We're the real deal. We're going to sound like a garage band, and we're going to, let our facial hair grow, which I understood.
The thing is that Cinderella wasn't the standard glam band. Like you shifted away from that after your first record. Mm-hmm. So the last two records, you were more 70s rock in style than 80s glam, but you still firmly got caught up in that musical shift.
I think they call that pigeonholed.
Yeah, maybe.
So I understood the shift even while we were recording. I'm listening to Alice in Chains and Soundgarden at the time, and we're recording this record, and I was like, I think that's my favorite record. I mean, I rarely get to hear it, but when I do, when I listen to the whole record, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. This is like the best record we ever recorded, but the time it was done, that type of music was over, on top of the fact that Polygram cleaned house. We were on Mercury Polygram, and the story as I know it is somebody wrote a book called Hitman. Do you know the book I'm talking about?
No, I haven't read that.
Exposing the music business, payola, the mob in the music business. Well, somebody wrote a book exposing, I guess, all the illegal goings on of the record business, and Polygram was the main culprit, was the number one culprit. Man, they named Cinderella in this book. We're not culpable for anything, but everybody, from the president on down, resigned and got fired. So while we were recording Still Climbing, these kids are like, who are you guys? Who are you guys again? I mean, literally didn't have any idea who we, or maybe have heard of us, but they were already on to, Seattle grunge. They're like, well, we have to, you already started the record and we have to honor your commitment. But we saw the writing on the wall. We knew as soon as we recorded this record, we were going to be dropped. And we were. We went back to doing clubs. And that was the last thing we did for a while. I don't think we did anything for like 3 years.
And what led to you guys firing it back up again after 3 years then?
Oh, Universal took over Polygram's catalog. Mercury, it doesn't exist anymore. Polygram's gone. So Universal took over the catalog. So at the time, a lot of old bands like that were putting out compilation records, greatest hits, but they started adding a new song or two. So Universal approached us. So this was like 95. I think we were done touring, Still Climbing in 95. We all kind of went our separate ways for a little bit. And 98, it was Universal said, we want to put out a greatest hits, but we need a new song or two. And that's when we got together and did, we gave him one song. We gave him a song called War Stories. And that was on the first Universal Greatest Hits, Golden Oldies, whatever it's called, you know.
And was that a new recording, or was that something you had in the vault?
No, it was a new song and it was a new recording. We actually, Fred had moved. We're all from the East Coast. Fred had moved to Nashville, and he started a studio. He goes, yeah, you know what? Come down here. I'll record it in my studio. Won't charge you guys. I'll even produce it with my engineer buddy. So that's what we did. We all, you know, ventured down to Nashville and recorded the song in Fred's studio, and had seen how far Fred had gone as a writer, engineer, producer in 3 years, in the 3 years that we hadn't been together. Actually, Fred wasn't on the Still Climbing record or the tour. So he had done like 2 records with Arcade and then started the studio. So he had gone way further, you know, while we were getting pigeonholed. So we recorded it, and we had so much fun and realized how much we missed each other. We're like, well, you know, there's a little, you know, I think people like this nostalgia kind of thing. You know, Journey's out on tour right now, blah, blah, blah. Why don't we put a tour together? And we were like, yeah, sure. We didn't have any manager. We didn't have a record deal anymore. No booking agent, nothing. Okay, so we started putting the feelers out there, like, okay, we want to tour. And people started jumping on board to help us. We got a new manager, we got a new booking agent, and they helped put a tour together. And before we even left, we had a record deal with Sony. You know? I was like, okay, that was cool. It was a great tour.
And that record deal with Sony famously went south. What was the problem with that one? Why didn't you guys ever record? Or did you actually get into the studio and it was just never released?
We demoed in Tom's studio. Tom's got a great studio in his house, but he, you know, I mean, record quality, but he doesn't think so. He's a bit more of a perfectionist than the rest of us. But we demoed. I think we demoed like 6 or 7 songs, and kept demoing. And John Kolodner, who had his own little label at Sony, you know, was given the keys to the camper, and he didn't do anything with them, you know. And before you knew it, he got fired, his label got shut down, and we were out. You know, we demoed 6 or 7 songs, a few of which are on Tom's solo record.
Okay.
I even play on a track too, like one that I demoed back in like 2000. I think it's Mood Elevator.
Oh, I'll have to go look at that.
We demoed that as a band, and he had, you know, over the years, he had gone and redid stuff and blah, blah, blah. But he actually kept, a guitar track that I did, what was it, 14 years ago?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. By the time he put this out, he told me, I have a credit on the record. I was like, when did I do that? But yeah, you know, Kolodner fumbled that ball. And but we kept going, you know. We teamed up with Poison a few times and kept on touring until the last tour. The last tour was probably 2 years ago, 13? 11? God, I don't even know. I have no sense of time. But, you know, it became apparent that Tom was going to put out a solo record. And my wife Debbie, and our manager, Larry Morand, he was like, you know, now, remember, you've been threatening to do a solo record for years. Now's the time. And the two of them kicked my ass all the way in the studio. And Tom's record came out, and he ended up, you know, he's out touring and stuff. So I followed suit.
And tell me what the process in that record. Was it a bunch of songs that you kind of written through the years that were that you already had, or did you start from scratch and start writing new material?
Most of it was stuff I already had, or at least ideas. A couple of the songs I had demoed before. I never really did them well. and some of them I had music but no lyrics. So it was all the above. I remember I recorded all the music for both Nightmare on My Street and You're Asking for a Beating, which I had titles, but I didn't have the lyrics or quite the hooks. But I had recorded all the music, and I'm sitting here in my recliner watching TV, and I'm like, oh shit, I have to go to the studio tomorrow and do vocal tracks on these. She's like, my wife's like, so? I was like, I don't have any lyrics. I don't have any lyrics. We have to do the vocals tomorrow. She's like, well, you better get on it. So I broke out my iPad, like in front of the TV. I just broke out my iPad and it just started just coming up with crazy shit to say. It's funny if you know those songs. I get interviewers like, you seemed in a very dark place then. Was that a rough time of your life? In your life? I was like, no, it's all tongue in cheek, man. I was laughing my ass off out loud while I was writing the lyrics. My wife's like on the couch going, man, you sound like a psycho. I was like, wait do you hear these lyrics?
Now, would you call that, a moment of inspiration and you cranked them out?
Yes. I guess you could put it that way. Yeah. I have on my iPhone and my iPad, I have like under notes, a list of like 100 song titles. I have pieces of lyrics. I have, song ideas like all over the place. So, sometimes I refer back to those. Anytime I hear a line or a phrase or even a word, I was like, oh, that would be a cool song title. I jot it down. Or if I hear a line in a movie, a really cool line in a movie, I'm like, oh man, I'm using that. Stuff like that.
How do you feel about this solo record looking back on it now?
I'm proud of it. I mean, I did it on myself. I'm really proud of it. I mean, there's a couple things I would have fixed. I mean, there's some flubby things, and, looking back, I was like, I should have fixed that. Fuck it. I mean, I like the little mistakes that you hear on like old Zeppelin records, You're like, what was that?
Yeah.
So I kind of left some of the blemishes that I know I could have fixed. I kind of left on purpose. I even wanted to do stuff in between the songs too. Like just hear us talking in the background in the studio or something. I don't know why I didn't. Because someone else mixed. Yeah, right. But no, I'm proud of it. I think I can do a lot better the next time. I wish it had been a full length, but I signed my deal with Rat Pak, and he just wanted an EP. I was like, an EP, just give me 5 songs. It's like, we'll start out that way. I was like, a lot of artists are putting out EPs now. I mean, really, a lot of artists are putting out one song at a time.
Yeah.
But so I gave him 5 songs. He goes, wow, that's really good. Can you give me 2 more? I'm like, dude, I'm like, Joe, I can give you 8 more if you want. You want to do a whole? No, I still want to make it an EP. I was like, all right, well, 7 songs. That's half a record. I was like, maybe more than half a record. So after it came out, I was like, you know what? I'll start working on another 7, and we'll call it side 2.
And how far along are you in that?
I go in the studio tomorrow. I go in the studio next week. I'm going to start a remix on one song and start recording another. But this one's good because I'm not using a lot of material that's already written. This one's going to come a little slower,
right?
Or I'm going to have to spend more time on it. There's a few song ideas that I've had over the years that I'm starting out with, but it's more starting out from scratch than the last one.
And if this was a dip your toe in the water type EP release, how do you feel the response has been?
I wish it was better, but hey, I understand. But no, I'm real thankful for just for getting out there and doing it, and the people that have bought it. Everybody's been so kind to me on in social media. Like not one person. I mean, some people can be freaking brutal on Twitter.
Oh, well, yeah.
And I never get that. I never get the assholes. I never get people that say anything bad, or even sarcastic. I love some of the sarcastic remarks, but I just because they're funny. But now everybody's been so supportive and so kind that they were even like Cinderella fans. I'm like, yeah, it's just a little heavier than Cinderella, And Cinderella fans have been great. They were coming out to see me. I would do like a few shows a month with my with my partner Jasmine Kane, and and a lot of Cinderella fans come out and they love the record. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm signing more of my own record than I am signing Cinderella stuff.
Well, that's a good sign.
All right.
and working with Rat Pak, what's your experience like working with them? They seem to be doing some very cool things.
Oh, they're awesome. I mean, I became friends with Joe O'Brien. I've never even met him face to face, but Joe O'Brien, I was like, we talk on the phone. I mean, during the release of this and after, and all the interviews they set up for me, I mean, we talk on the phone like all the time. I just, and a lot of times it's not about business. It's about personal things, and we just make each other laugh. He's a funny guy. We're both sarcastic as shit. So yeah, it's been an awesome relationship, and I deal directly. I don't deal through a manager or anything. We talk directly and deal with everything directly. So there's no politics or anything. And he's got a great staff. He's got a girl named Tina that does all the, all the web and online stuff, and another girl named Jen who sets up all the interviews and stuff like that. So he's got a really cool staff.
Lynch Mob is on them as well, and they had done an EP earlier, and then they just did a second EP now, and they kind of had the first EP remastered and tacked on the end, which made it a full length. Do you think that would be in your future for the second half of the On the Road?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, I thought about that. Just tag on. It depends on how he wants to package it, I guess. But yeah, I didn't know that he'd done that. I mean, I know George Lynch puts out a CD like every 3 months.
I know, it's kind of crazy, eh?
I was like, man, I wish I had that work ethic. What I'm going in the studio next week to do, I might actually release ahead of time. I mean, in case it doesn't work out, I don't want to tell you what it is.
Understood.
I'm going to work on a remix and see how it comes out. And if it comes out good, Joe O'Brien, he'll release it as like a electronic single.
So you've got some new recording plans, some remixing plans. Tom's still touring his solo project. Do you see anything coming with Cinderella in the reasonably near future?
I hope so. We haven't talked about it, but Cinderella's Cinderella's been in my life for 25 years, 30 years now.
Yeah,
85. Yeah, Cinderella's been in my life for 30 years now. I don't see why it should stop. So, yeah, I would. I think so. Judging by the past, I would think so.
Well, hopefully there'll be a new record at some point too.
Right? that would be awesome. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think you guys are due, man.
Yeah, right.
I gave it all away.
That was Jeff LaBar. I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next week for an in-depth conversation with guitarist Rowan Robertson.